For 32 years, I believed family meant everything. Blood was thicker than water, right? Wrong. Standing outside my childhood home last Tuesday, watching my parents celebrate my golden child brother's promotion, while completely forgetting my birthday again, I realized the truth. They had been stealing from my inheritance for decades, funding his lifestyle while I struggled through nursing school. But this time I had proof. This time they would see my beautiful new house and wonder why their daughter's door stayed permanently locked to them. Hey everyone, I can already feel your hearts breaking for what I went through, and trust me, this family betrayal gets so much deeper than just forgotten birthdays. Before we dive into how I discovered the shocking truth about what my family was really doing behind my back, I need to know, are you watching from your phone or computer? Drop a like if you have ever felt invisible in your own family and subscribe, because this revenge story is about to get absolutely wild. You will not believe how karma finally caught up with them. My name is Serafina Walsh, and I should have known something was wrong when my parents bought my brother Marcus his third luxury car while I was eating ramen noodles for dinner during my final year of nursing school. But like most people who grow up in dysfunctional families, I made excuses. Marcus was their firstborn son. Marcus had the business degree. Marcus needed these things for his important career in marketing. What I did not know was that Marcus needed these things because he was hemorrhaging money faster than my parents could steal it from me. It all started to unravel 3 months ago when I received a call from Sterling and Associates, a law firm I had never heard of. The woman on the phone, Patricia Sterling herself, asked if I was Serafina Walsh, daughter of Robert and Margaret Walsh. Yes, I said, confused. Is everything okay? Ms. Walsh, I am calling regarding your grandmother's estate. There seems to be some discrepancy in the financial records we need to discuss. My grandmother Evelyn had passed away 2 years prior, leaving me what my parents said was a small trust fund of about $10,000. They had handled everything because I was overwhelmed with school and work. They were helping me, they said. They were protecting me from the complicated legal stuff. What kind of discrepancy, I asked. Perhaps we should meet in person. Are you available this week? I met Patricia at her office downtown in one of those glass buildings that made me feel underdressed in my scrubs. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. Ms. Walsh, she began sliding a thick folder across her mahogany desk. Your grandmother left you significantly more than $10,000. I opened the folder with trembling hands. The number at the top of the first page made me dizzy. $350,000. My grandmother had left me $350,000. That cannot be right, I whispered. It is absolutely right. However, according to our records, someone has been accessing this account regularly for the past 2 years. Someone with power of attorney. My father. He had power of attorney. Patricia pulled out bank statements, transaction records, and photocopies of withdrawal slips. All signed by Robert Walsh. All approved by Margaret Walsh as co-signer. Luxury car payments for Marcus. Private school tuition for Marcus's daughter. Down payment on Marcus's house. Vacation expenses. Designer clothing. Restaurant bills. They had spent my inheritance like it was their personal ATM. How much is left? I asked. Approximately $15,000. I sat in that chair for 10 minutes just staring at the papers. My parents had looked me in the eye for 2 years, watched me struggle to pay for textbooks and groceries, watched me work double shifts at the hospital just to make rent, and they never said a word. They had stolen over $300,000 from me, and then had the audacity to forget my birthday year after year. But the betrayal went deeper than money. Patricia pulled out another document. There is something else, Ms. Walsh. Your grandmother specifically requested that if anything happened to the primary inheritance, you should be informed about the secondary property. Secondary property? Your grandmother owned a house in Riverside County. She left it to you as well, separate from the trust fund. Your parents were supposed to transfer the deed after probate, but they never did. They have been renting it out and collecting the rental income for 2 years. I drove straight to Riverside County that afternoon. The house was beautiful, a three-bedroom craftsman with original hardwood floors and a wraparound porch. There was a young family living there, a couple with twin toddlers who obviously had no idea their landlords were criminals. I knocked on the door and introduced myself as Evelyn Walsh's granddaughter. "Oh my goodness," the woman said. "We loved your grandmother. She used to bring us cookies every Christmas. Are you here to check on the property? Your father usually handles everything." "My father?" "Yes, Robert. He collects the rent every month. $2,000. We have been such good tenants. We even painted the kitchen ourselves and fixed the back fence. We hope we can stay long term." $2,000 a month for 2 years. Another $48,000 my parents had stolen. I sat in my car outside that house for an hour doing math in my head. They had stolen nearly $400,000 from me. $400,000 that could have paid off my student loans, bought me a house, given me the security I had dreamed about my entire adult life. Instead, I was living in a studio apartment with a leaky ceiling, driving a car held together with prayer and duct tape, while my brother posted Instagram photos from his ski vacation in Aspen. That night, I called my parents. "Serafina." My mother's voice was artificially cheerful. "How was work, sweetheart?" "I met with grandmother's lawyer today." Silence. Long, guilty silence. "Oh," she finally said. "Well, you know how complicated estate things can be. Your father and I have been handling everything to protect you from the stress." "Protect me by stealing my inheritance." "Sweetheart, you are being dramatic. We borrowed some money when Marcus was going through his difficult time. We fully intended to pay it back." "You borrowed $300,000 without asking me." My father got on the phone. "Serafina, you need to understand. Marcus was about to lose his house. His marriage was falling apart. He needed help, and you were just in school. You did not need that money yet." "I did not need food. I did not need to pay rent. I did not need books for school." "You were fine. You are always fine. You are the strong one. The strong one. The invisible one. The one who did not matter enough to remember her birthday, but who mattered enough to rob blind." I hung up the phone and made a decision. They wanted to play games with my money, fine. I would play games too, but I would be playing by different rules. The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years and drove back to Patricia Sterling's office. This time, I was not the confused, overwhelmed girl in scrubs. This time I had a plan. "I want to press charges," I told her. Patricia leaned back in her chair. "That is certainly an option. What they did constitutes embezzlement and fraud. But you should know pursuing criminal charges against family members can be extremely difficult, both legally and emotionally. They made it difficult when they stole $400,000 from me." "400,000?" I explained about the rental property. Patricia took notes, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "Ms. Walsh, what they did is significantly worse than I initially thought. The fact that they have been collecting rental income while allowing you to believe the property did not exist, that is criminal fraud. Combined with the embezzlement of the trust fund, we are looking at felony charges." "Good. However, I want you to consider something. Criminal charges can take years to resolve, and there is no guarantee you will recover your money. But there is another approach, a more immediate one." She explained that we could file a civil lawsuit and simultaneously demand an immediate audit of all my grandmother's assets. We could freeze any remaining funds and force my parents to provide a complete accounting of every penny they had spent. More importantly, we could do it publicly. "Public record," Patricia said. "Every document, every transaction, every lie they have told. It all becomes public record. Their friends, their neighbors, their employers. Everyone will know exactly what they did." I thought about my mother, who served on the church board and organized the annual charity auction. I thought about my father, who was a respected accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. I thought about Marcus, who worked for a marketing company that prided itself on integrity and ethical business practices. How quickly can we do this? I can have the paperwork filed by Friday. Friday was 3 days away. 3 days to prepare for the nuclear option. I spent those 3 days documenting everything. I went through old text messages, emails, and voicemails. I found conversations where they had explicitly lied to me about my grandmother's estate. I found photos on Marcus's social media showing off purchases that I now knew were funded by my stolen inheritance. The Rolex watch, the designer handbags for his wife, the family vacation to Europe. I also drove back to the rental property and spoke with the tenants again. This time I brought a recording device. I need to ask you some questions about your rental agreement. I told them. They were happy to help. They showed me copies of their lease signed by my father. They showed me receipts for rent payments made out to R. Walsh Property Management. They had no idea they were living in stolen property. Is everything okay? The woman asked. We really love this house. Your father said the family wanted to keep it as a rental long term. The family, I repeated. Did he ever mention that this house belonged to me? To you? No, he said it was a family property that you all managed together. Another lie. Another layer of betrayal. On Friday morning, I met Patricia at the courthouse. We filed a civil lawsuit against my parents for embezzlement, fraud, and conversion. We also filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets related to my grandmother's estate and demanded immediate restitution. But that was not the best part. The best part was that I also filed a lawsuit against Marcus. Because under California law, if someone benefits from embezzled funds, they can be held liable for restitution even if they did not directly participate in the theft. Marcus had received nearly $200,000 in stolen money. He was about to learn that his luxury lifestyle came with a very expensive price tag. The lawsuits were filed at 10 in the morning. By noon, they were public record. By 2 in the afternoon, my phone was ringing non-stop. The first call was from my mother. Serafina, what have you done? I filed a lawsuit, just like you filed fraudulent paperwork to steal my money. This is going to destroy our family. You already destroyed our family. I am just making it official. The second call was from Marcus. Are you insane? You are suing me. I did not know where that money came from. You never asked. You just took it. I am your brother. You are a thief. The third call was from my father. Serafina, we need to talk. This has gone too far. It went too far when you forged my signature on legal documents. I never forged your signature. Check the lawsuit, Dad. Patricia found the documents. We have handwriting experts. Silence. You need to drop this lawsuit immediately or you will regret it. Is that a threat? It is a promise. You have no idea what you are dealing with. Neither do you. I hung up and immediately called Patricia. He just threatened me, I told her. Document everything, save that voicemail. We can file a restraining order if necessary. But I did not want a restraining order. I wanted justice. And justice was just getting started. By 5 in the afternoon, local news had picked up the story. Local family sued for embezzling inheritance was the headline on Channel 7 News. They did not use my name, but they used my parents' names. Robert and Margaret Walsh accused of stealing their daughter's inheritance to fund their son's lifestyle. By 6 in the evening, my mother's church friends were calling her. My father's colleagues were sending concerned emails. Marcus's boss was asking uncomfortable questions. By 7, I was sitting in my tiny studio apartment eating takeout Chinese food and watching my family's reputation crumble on the evening news. It felt better than birthday cake. The next 2 weeks were warfare. My parents hired Bradley Kingston, one of the most expensive defense attorneys in the county. Marcus liquidated his savings account to pay for his own lawyer. They were fighting back hard, which told me everything I needed to know about how much money was actually at stake. But I was not fighting alone anymore. The first ally came from an unexpected place. The day after the lawsuit was filed, I received a call from someone named David Morrison. Ms. Walsh, my name is David Morrison. I am a forensic accountant, and I have been following your case in the news. Okay. I think your family stole money from my grandmother, too. David explained that his grandmother, Eleanor Morrison, had been friends with my grandmother, Evelyn. They had lived in the same senior community and had used the same financial advisor, my father. After my grandmother died last year, we discovered that someone had been withdrawing money from her accounts without authorization. The paperwork pointed to Robert Walsh, but we could never prove it. When I saw your lawsuit, I realized we might be dealing with the same pattern of fraud. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. David was a man in his 40s, dressed in a conservative suit with the careful precision of someone who spent his days analyzing other people's financial mistakes. How much did they steal from your grandmother? I asked. Approximately $60,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. 60,000. It gets worse. I started making some calls after I saw your story. I found 3 other families who used your father as their financial advisor for estate planning. All of them discovered missing funds after their elderly relatives died. David pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. Bank statements, withdrawal records, forged signatures. It was like looking at a blueprint for systematic elder abuse. Ms. Walsh, I do not think what happened to you was opportunistic. I think your father has been running a sophisticated embezzlement scheme for years targeting elderly clients and their heirs. The implications hit me like a freight train. This was not just about my inheritance. This was about my father being a serial criminal who had been stealing from vulnerable elderly people and their families for years. And my mother and Marcus were not just beneficiaries of my stolen money, they were accomplices in a much larger criminal enterprise. We need to go to the police, I said. We need to be smart about this, David replied. If we can prove a pattern of fraud across multiple victims, the district attorney will be very interested. But we need to build an airtight case. David became my first real ally, but he was not the last. The second ally was someone I never expected, Marcus's ex-wife, Jennifer. Jennifer called me 3 days after the lawsuit was filed. Serafina, this is Jennifer. I know we have never really talked, but I saw the news about your lawsuit. Marcus and Jennifer had divorced 6 months earlier, in what everyone described as an amicable split. Jennifer had moved to San Diego with their daughter, and Marcus had kept the house. I think you should know, Jennifer continued, that Marcus told me where the money for our house came from. My blood pressure spiked. What did he tell you? He said your parents were helping him out temporarily because I was being unreasonable about the divorce settlement. He said they had access to some family money that you did not need right away because you were just in school. He knew it was my money. It gets worse, Serafina. Marcus has been lying about his income for years. He never made enough money to afford our lifestyle. The cars, the house, the vacations, it was all funded by your family. I thought his parents were just generous. I never realized they were stealing from you. Jennifer had kept financial records from the marriage. Bank deposits that corresponded exactly with withdrawals from my trust fund. Credit card payments made by my father. A paper trail that connected Marcus directly to the theft. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because I have a daughter and someday she might have family members who try to steal from her. I want her to know that sometimes you have to fight for what is right, even when it is hard. Jennifer became my second ally, and she brought something even more valuable than evidence. She brought moral clarity. This was not about money anymore. This was about justice. The third ally came from my own workplace. Dr. Rebecca Martinez had been my supervising physician during my clinical rotations, and she had become something of a mentor to me over the past 2 years. When the story hit the news, she called me into her office. Serafina, I saw the news. Are you okay? I explained everything that had happened, expecting sympathy but professional distance. Instead, Dr. Martinez leaned forward with fire in her eyes. Your father is Robert Walsh from Walsh and Associates Accounting. Yes. Do you know him? My husband used Robert Walsh to handle his father's estate 3 years ago. We suspected something was wrong, but we could never prove it. Dr. Martinez's father-in-law had died, leaving what should have been a substantial inheritance for her husband and his siblings. But by the time Robert Walsh finished handling the estate, there was almost nothing left. Walsh had claimed there were outstanding debts and taxes that consumed most of the assets. We accepted his explanation because we trusted him. He was recommended by other families in our community. But if what you are saying is true, then he stole from us, too. Doctor Martinez brought more than just another victim's story. She brought credibility. She was a respected physician with connections throughout the professional community. When she started talking about Robert Walsh's pattern of financial abuse, people listened. She also brought something else: access to the medical community, where many of Walsh's elderly victims had received care. I am going to make some calls, she told me. I think we are going to find that your father has been targeting elderly patients who used our medical group for their care. He probably has a list of wealthy seniors who trust their doctor's recommendations for financial planning. By the end of the second week, we had identified 7 additional families who had been victimized by my father's scheme. The total amount stolen was over $1.2 million. But the fourth ally was the one who changed everything. I was working a night shift at the hospital when I received a text from an unknown number. I have information about your father that you need. Meet me tomorrow at noon at the Starbucks on 5th Street. Come alone. A friend. I almost deleted it. It sounded like something from a bad movie, but something made me screenshot the message and show it to David Morrison when I got off work. You should not go alone, he said. I will sit near the window. If anything seems wrong, I will leave. The next day, I sat in that Starbucks for 20 minutes before a woman in her 60s approached my table. She was well dressed with silver hair and kind eyes, but she looked nervous. Serafina? I nodded. She sat down across from me and extended her hand. My name is Catherine Walsh. I am your father's sister. I stared at her. My father had told me his only sister died in a car accident when they were young adults. You are supposed to be dead, I said. Catherine laughed bitterly. That is what he tells people. It is easier than explaining why his sister refuses to speak to him. Catherine explained that she had cut contact with my father 15 years earlier when she discovered he had been forging her mother's signature to access her bank accounts. My grandmother, my father's mother, had died believing that Catherine had abandoned her, never knowing that Robert had been intercepting Catherine's letters and stealing her phone calls. I tried to expose him then, Catherine said. But he was clever. He made it look like I was the unstable one fighting with family over money. He turned everyone against me. Why are you contacting me now? Because you are not fighting this alone anymore. I have been watching your lawsuit and I have been collecting evidence for 15 years. Bank records, forged documents, witness statements from other victims. I have been waiting for someone with standing to file a lawsuit, and now that someone is you. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Everything is on here. Every crime he has committed, every family he has destroyed, every elderly person he has stolen from. This is not just about your inheritance, Serafina. Your father has been stealing from vulnerable seniors for decades. I stared at the flash drive. Why did you wait so long? Because I needed someone he could not discredit. Someone with legal standing and community support. Someone who could not be dismissed as a disgruntled family member with a grudge. She paused. I needed his own daughter. That night, I called Patricia Sterling and told her about Catherine. We arranged to meet the next morning to review the evidence. What we found on that flash drive was devastating. 15 years of documented fraud, names, dates, amounts stolen, forged documents. Not just my father, but a network of accomplices, including my mother and Marcus. This is enough for criminal charges, Patricia said. Multiple felonies. We are talking about decades in prison. But there was something else on that flash drive that changed everything. Security camera footage from 2 years ago showing my parents and Marcus meeting with an elderly man in a restaurant. The man was signing papers, and my father was explaining something to him. The footage was time-stamped 3 days before the man died. The man was Harold Brennan, And according to the documents Catherine had collected, Robert Walsh had convinced Harold to change his will just days before his death, leaving everything to a charity that did not exist. Walsh had then collected the inheritance as the charity's representative. "This is not just embezzlement," Patricia said quietly. "This is elder abuse with potential homicide implications." We were not just fighting a civil lawsuit anymore. We were about to bring down a criminal enterprise that had been operating for 15 years. And my family was about to learn that their daughter, sister, and granddaughter was not the weak, forgiving pushover they thought she was. I was their worst nightmare, a victim with evidence, allies with resources, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The war was about to become a rout. Everything was going perfectly until David Morrison betrayed me. It happened 3 weeks into building our case. We had scheduled a meeting with the district attorney to present our evidence of the multifamily fraud scheme. Catherine had provided documentation of 15 years of systematic theft. Jennifer had given us Marcus's financial records proving his knowledge of the stolen funds. Dr. Martinez had connected us with 5 additional victim families. I trusted David completely. He had been the one to first contact me, the one who helped me understand that this was bigger than just my family. He had spent dozens of hours organizing evidence, coordinating with other victims, and building the foundation for criminal charges, which is why it never occurred to me that he might be working for my father. The betrayal started small. David called me on a Tuesday morning 3 days before our scheduled meeting with the district attorney. "Serafina, we have a problem. One of the victim families is getting cold feet about cooperating with criminal prosecution." "Which family?" "The Hendersons. They are worried about the public exposure. They want to settle privately with your father instead." I was disappointed but not surprised. Criminal cases are intimidating, especially for elderly people who just want their money back. "Can we move forward without them?" "Yes, but there is something else. I have been thinking about your situation specifically, and I wonder if you have considered a private settlement as well." I nearly dropped the phone. "What are you talking about?" "Serafina, you are young. You have your whole career ahead of you. If this goes to criminal trial, it could take years to resolve. Your family will fight every step of the way. It will be expensive, exhausting, and there is no guarantee you will get your money back." "David, they stole $400,000 from me. They stole money from your grandmother. They are serial criminals." "But what if you could get your money back right now? What if they agreed to pay full restitution plus damages in exchange for you dropping the criminal charges?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "Has someone contacted you?" "Your father's attorney reached out to me yesterday. They are prepared to offer you $500,000 to settle this quietly. That is more than they stole from you. You would come out ahead." "And what about the other victims?" "They would handle those separately. Similar settlements for everyone." I sat in my car outside the hospital trying to process what I was hearing. David Morrison, the man who had helped me discover the scope of my father's crimes, was now advocating for letting him buy his way out of consequences. "David, did they offer you money?" "Serafina, you are being paranoid. Did they offer you money?" Silence. "How much?" I asked. "It is not what you think." "How much, David?" $50,000 to facilitate settlements with all the victim families. I hung up the phone and immediately called Patricia Sterling. "David Morrison just tried to convince me to accept a settlement offer from my father's attorney," I told her. "Damn it," Patricia said. "I was afraid this might happen. You knew he might betray us." "I suspected he might be compromised when your father's attorney filed a motion yesterday requesting a delay in our civil case. They claimed they needed more time to review evidence, but the timing was suspicious." Patricia explained that it was common for defendants in complex fraud cases to try to flip key witnesses or allies. They identify the people who are most essential to the prosecution's case, and then offer them money, threaten them with legal action, or convince them that settlement is better than trial. "David Morrison has evidence from multiple victim families," Patricia continued. "If he withdraws his cooperation and convinces other families to settle privately, our criminal case becomes much weaker." "Can they do that?" "Legally, yes. Each victim has the right to settle independently. But Serafina, there is something else you need to know. I received a call from Catherine Walsh this morning. She has gone silent. She is not returning my calls. My Aunt Catherine, who had waited 15 years to expose my father, was now unreachable. What about Jennifer? Still cooperating, but she received a call from Marcus yesterday. He told her that if she testified against him, he would fight for full custody of their daughter and claim she was an unfit mother. Can he do that? He can try, and even if he loses, the legal battle would be expensive and traumatic for Jennifer and their daughter. I sat in Patricia's office that afternoon watching my carefully built alliance crumble in real time. David was actively working against us. Catherine had disappeared. Jennifer was being threatened with losing her child. Dr. Martinez was still supportive, but without the other victim families, her husband's case alone was not enough to prove a pattern of fraud. What happens now? I asked. We can still pursue your individual case. We have strong evidence for the embezzlement of your inheritance and the fraud related to the rental property, but without the other victims, we cannot prove the larger criminal enterprise. So my father gets away with stealing from all those families, unless we can find another way to prove the pattern of fraud. That night I sat in my studio apartment, feeling more alone than I had since this whole nightmare began. My family had stolen my money, forgotten my birthday, and treated me like I was invisible for years. But somehow having allies and then losing them felt even worse than being alone from the start. I called Jennifer to check on her situation. I am so sorry, Serafina, she said. Marcus is threatening to take Emma away from me. I cannot risk losing my daughter. I understand. Family comes first. You are family too, though. You are the only member of that family who ever treated me like a human being. After I hung up, I realized something important. Jennifer was right. I was family. But I was not blood family to the people who had betrayed me. I was chosen family to the people who cared about me. The question was, who else might be part of my chosen family? Who else might be willing to fight for justice, even when the blood relatives had given up? The answer came from the most unexpected place imaginable. The new ally who saved my case was someone I never could have anticipated: Marcus's teenage daughter, Emma. Jennifer called me at 6 in the morning, 3 days after David's betrayal became public. Serafina, you need to meet with Emma. She has something to tell you, but she is scared to talk to anyone else. Emma is 17, Jennifer. I cannot involve a minor in this legal battle. She is already involved. Marcus has been using her to help with his financial schemes, and she did not understand what she was doing until she saw the lawsuit. We met that afternoon at a quiet cafe near Emma's high school. She looked exactly like Marcus, same dark hair, same sharp features. But there was something in her eyes that reminded me of myself at that age. A combination of intelligence and hurt that comes from realizing the adults in your life are not who you thought they were. Aunt Serafina, she said quietly, I helped Dad steal from you, and I did not know I was doing it. Emma explained that for the past 2 years, Marcus had been having her help with what he called family business paperwork. He would give her documents to scan and email, checks to deposit at the bank, and financial forms to fill out online. He said Grandpa Robert needed help organizing family accounts because Grandma Margaret was not good with computers. He said it was normal family stuff that everyone helped with. What kind of documents? Emma pulled out her phone and showed me photos she had taken of some of the paperwork. Bank transfer authorizations, investment account applications, insurance policy changes, all bearing forged signatures that I now recognized as my grandmother's handwriting. I scanned hundreds of these documents over 2 years, Emma said. Dad said they were just updating old family financial accounts. But Emma had kept copies of everything on her phone, not because she suspected anything wrong, but because she was naturally organized and wanted to help her father keep track of the paperwork. What she had accidentally created was a complete digital archive of my father's fraud operation. There is more, Emma continued. Dad made me practice signing Grandma Evelyn's name because he said sometimes the bank needed documents with her signature, but her handwriting was shaky because she was old. He had you forge your great-grandmother's signature. He said it was helping her. He said she had asked him to handle her finances, but sometimes the bank was picky about signature matching. Emma had unknowingly been the primary document forger for my father's criminal enterprise. But because she was a minor who had been manipulated by a trusted adult, she was not legally liable. Instead, she was the perfect witness, someone with direct knowledge of the crimes who had no legal exposure. Why are you telling me this now? Because when I saw the lawsuit, I realized what those documents really were. And because Dad told me yesterday that if anyone asked me about the paperwork, I should say I never saw anything. Emma paused, and when she continued, her voice was stronger. But I did see something. I saw my dad stealing from family, and I saw my grandfather teaching him how to do it. That evening, I called Patricia Sterling and explained about Emma's evidence. "This changes everything," Patricia said. "If we have digital copies of forged documents plus testimony from the person who actually helped create them, we can prove the systematic nature of the fraud." "Can a 17-year-old testify in court?" "Absolutely. And her testimony will be incredibly powerful because she has no motive to lie. She is putting herself at risk of family retaliation to tell the truth." But Emma brought more than just evidence. She brought information about the current state of my father's operation. "Aunt Serafina, I think Grandpa Robert is planning to run away." Emma explained that over the past week, her grandfather had been having her help him with what he called organizing financial accounts for tax season. But the documents she was scanning were actually asset transfer forms, moving money from various accounts into offshore investments. He said he and Grandma Margaret might take a long vacation to Europe this spring, maybe 6 months or more. My father was preparing to flee the country with whatever money he had left. "We need to move fast," Patricia said. "If he transfers assets offshore, we may never recover your money." The next morning, we filed an emergency motion to freeze all of Robert Walsh's financial accounts and place a hold on his passport. We also filed an amended lawsuit that included the new evidence from Emma's phone. But the most important thing Emma brought was not evidence or information. It was hope. That evening, Emma called me again. "Aunt Serafina, I talked to my mom about everything. She said she wants to help with your case, even if Dad threatens to fight for custody." "Emma, I cannot ask your mother to risk losing you." "You are not asking. We are volunteering. Mom said that if Dad tries to take me away because she is telling the truth about financial crimes, then he is not the kind of father she wants me to have anyway." Jennifer got back on the phone. "Serafina, I have been thinking about what you said about family. Marcus is Emma's biological father, but you are the family member who actually cares about doing the right thing. Emma needs to see that sometimes you have to fight for justice even when it is scary." The next day, I received an unexpected call from Dr. Martinez. "Serafina, I have been making calls in the medical community about your father's targeting of elderly patients. I found something interesting." Dr. Martinez had discovered that Robert Walsh had been receiving referrals from a specific social worker at the County Department of Aging Services. The social worker, Margaret Holloway, had been directing elderly clients to Walsh for estate planning services. "The problem is, Margaret Holloway is married to your father's business partner, Frank Holloway. They have been running a referral scheme targeting vulnerable seniors who need financial planning help." This was the missing piece that connected all of my father's victims. They had not been random targets. They had been systematically identified and referred by someone in a position of trust. "Dr. Martinez, this proves the criminal conspiracy. We are not just dealing with individual fraud cases. We are dealing with an organized scheme to target and exploit elderly people." But the best part was what Dr. Martinez said next. "I have been in contact with the other families whose elderly relatives were victimized. When they learned about the referral scheme, they realized they were not isolated cases. They are all willing to testify now." David Morrison had convinced several families to pursue private settlements, but he had not been able to reach all of them. And when the families learned that there was an organized conspiracy specifically targeting elderly people through government services, they were angry enough to fight back. How many families do we have now? 12, representing over $2 million in stolen funds. That night, I sat in my apartment looking at the evidence spread across my kitchen table. Bank records, forged documents, phone photos, witness statements. What had started as a personal lawsuit about my stolen inheritance had become a federal case involving organized elder abuse. My father had built his criminal enterprise around the assumption that his victims would be too old, too isolated, or too ashamed to fight back. He had counted on family loyalty to protect him from consequences. But he had made one critical mistake. He had stolen from his own daughter, and his daughter had inherited something he never expected: the courage to fight for justice, the intelligence to build a case, and the ability to create a chosen family of allies who cared more about doing the right thing than protecting a criminal. Tomorrow we would present our case to the district attorney. Tomorrow my father would learn that his invisible daughter had become his most dangerous enemy. And tomorrow justice would finally begin. The district attorney called it one of the most comprehensive elder fraud cases they had ever seen. 6 months later, I stood in a federal courtroom watching my father, mother, and brother being sentenced for their crimes. Robert Walsh received 15 years in federal prison for organized financial fraud, elder abuse, and money laundering. Margaret Walsh received 8 years for conspiracy and accessory charges. Marcus received 5 years for receiving stolen property and participating in the fraud scheme. But the sentences were only part of the justice. The real satisfaction came from watching their carefully constructed lives completely collapse. My father lost his accounting license and his business. His clients discovered that their trusted financial advisor was a federal criminal, and several of them filed additional lawsuits. The company he had worked for 23 years released a statement saying they had been completely unaware of his criminal activities and were cooperating fully with federal investigators. My mother lost her position on the church board when the congregation learned she had helped steal money from elderly parishioners. The charity auction she had organized for 12 years was renamed to remove any association with her involvement. Her social circle, which had been built around her reputation as a community leader, evaporated overnight. Marcus lost his job when his employer discovered that he had been living off stolen money while representing their company to clients. His house was seized as part of the asset forfeiture process. The luxury cars were repossessed. Even his daughter's college fund was frozen pending investigation of its funding sources. But beyond the criminal consequences, there were personal reckonings that went deeper than any court sentence. The day after sentencing, I drove to my childhood neighborhood and parked outside the house where I had grown up. There was a for sale sign in the front yard. The family that had seemed so perfect, so successful, so untouchable, had been revealed as criminals and fraudsters. I did not feel sad. I felt free. That afternoon I went to my new house, the house I had bought with my recovered inheritance money. It was a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman in a quiet neighborhood with original hardwood floors and a wraparound porch that reminded me of my grandmother Evelyn's house. Emma was helping me arrange furniture in the living room. She had chosen to spend her weekends with me rather than visiting her father in prison. "Aunt Serafina," she said, "I have been thinking about what you said about chosen family." "What about it?" "I think you chose me, but I also chose you." "Is that how it works?" "That is exactly how it works." Jennifer came over that evening with dinner and wine. She had started a new job as a graphic designer and was building a life in San Diego that was completely separate from Marcus's influence. But she drove up to see me every few weeks because, as she said, family is about the people who show up for you. Dr. Martinez stopped by after her shift at the hospital. She had been promoted to department head partly because of her work helping expose the elder fraud scheme, But more importantly, she had become a mentor and friend who taught me that sometimes fighting for justice is part of caring for people. Catherine Walsh. My father's sister came to dinner as well. She had emerged from 15 years of hiding to help bring down her criminal brother, and now she was rebuilding relationships with the family members who actually deserved her love. Patricia Sterling joined us for dessert. She had taken my case partly for the legal challenge, but she stayed because she believed in the principle that family criminals should not be protected by family loyalty. We sat on my wraparound porch that evening, watching the sunset and talking about the future. Do you ever regret exposing them? Jennifer asked. I thought about it carefully. I regret that they chose to be criminals. I regret that they chose to steal from elderly people. I regret that they chose to treat me like I was invisible for 32 years. But I do not regret fighting back. What about family loyalty? Emma asked. Real family loyalty means protecting family members from harm, even if the harm is coming from other family members. Real family loyalty means standing up for what is right even when it is difficult. Catherine nodded. Your father spent years teaching everyone that family meant keeping secrets and protecting criminals. But you taught us that family means holding each other accountable and choosing to love people who deserve it. 6 months later, I was promoted to charge nurse in the cardiac intensive care unit. I used part of my recovered inheritance to pay off my student loans and establish a scholarship fund for nursing students who come from families that cannot or will not support their education. Emma graduated from high school with honors and received a full scholarship to study forensic accounting. She said she wanted to help other people recover from financial crimes the way Patricia Sterling had helped me. Jennifer started her own graphic design business and moved back to the city so Emma could be closer to chosen family during college. Dr. Martinez and I became business partners in a consulting firm that helps medical facilities identify and report suspected elder abuse. Catherine started a support group for family members who have been victimized by their own relatives. And every year on my birthday, we have dinner together. Real family. The people who chose each other, who show up for each other, and who believe that love means holding each other accountable for being better people. The house that my grandmother left me has become a home filled with people who understand that blood does not make you family, but loyalty, love, and integrity do. My parents and brother forgot my birthday for 32 years. My chosen family has never missed it once. Last month, I received a letter from my father in federal prison. He wanted to apologize and rebuild our relationship. He said he hoped that someday I would forgive him and we could be a family again. I did not respond. Some relationships cannot be rebuilt because they were never built on solid ground in the first place. Some families are toxic, and the healthiest thing you can do is replace them with people who actually love you. The best revenge is not just getting justice. The best revenge is building a life so good that you no longer need revenge because you are too busy being happy. I am 33 years old, and for the first time in my life, I understand what it feels like to be truly seen, truly valued, and truly loved by the people I call family. My door is always open to them. For everyone else, it stays locked. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what was right? Have you experienced the kind of betrayal that made you question everything you believed about blood, being thicker than water? Share your story in the comments, because I know I am not the only one who has learned that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you were born into. Hit that like button if this story resonated with your own experiences with family karma, and subscribe because I believe everyone deserves to hear stories about people who fought for justice and won. Share this video with someone who needs to know that they do not have to protect people who hurt them, even if those people are family. Thank you for listening to my story about learning that real family means mutual love and respect, not unconditional protection for people who choose to be criminals. I hope you all find your chosen family and build relationships based on love, integrity, and genuine care for each other's well-being.